Good evening. Welcome to the Kingdom Lump Small Town Underground. This is an unannounced live stream that we're doing here, and I'll explain it in a second. But my guest today, who I just threw this up on the spot, this is my father. This is my father, Roy. And let me tell you why we're here, what we have just done. So many times we talk about technology and how technology, artificial intelligence, all that junk, but, we can use it in great ways. And we were able to have a video chat with his last remaining sister, who is 93 years old. And as we were sitting here trying to use all this equipment and hook up to the phone and get them to see each other, I was just kind of thinking about how awesome it is that we have the technology that we can do something like that. They are in California, we're here in Georgia, and we were able to kind of seamlessly put them together where they could see each other and talk to each other from sea to sea. And as we were sitting here, we were just kind of reminiscing on some old stories, and I've kind of wanted to get him on the show anyway to talk, and I just kind of put him on the spot, so we probably won't stay on long, but I thought this would be really interesting. So welcome to the show, Dad.
Thank you. I don't know what I'm doing here or why I'm here.
Well, we certainly appreciate you. I want to talk to you for a second about, you are going to be 81 years old in May, and your last remaining living sister is 93 years old. So the changes that you've seen growing up. So I just want to talk a little bit. Like first, just tell us, you were born in 1943.
I was born May 14th, 1943. I lived in Huntland, Tennessee, which I was where I was born. My daddy worked for the sawmill, and my playground was stacks of lumber, mostly behind our house, and we did a lot of great things back in the lumber. That was born by that was owned by Ray Johnson. My daddy worked for him. I can remember. Coming back. We moved to Chicago. Around Chicago, and I remember coming back and finding my cousins playing with some stuff that they dug out of a garbage can behind the bank, and some of them were my dad's old cash checks.
Really?
Yeah, and I found some of those, and I hung on to them they were $12 a week, $14 a week.
Wow.
And that amazed me how we survived on that little amount of money. But my mother and father raised three sisters, three of my sisters, and me. And we never had a hell of a lot but I can never remember going hungry. I can never remember being without clean clothes. I had some patched clothes sometimes, but they were always clean and they were neat. And I can remember my mother, when I don't know how old I was, 4 or 5 years old, but I remember playing in a cotton field, and she would send me down the rows of cotton. I can remember it being kind of cold back then, and I'd go down there and build a pile of cotton for her. Time she picked her way down there, she'd always, oh, great, you're great, I'd pick her a pile of cotton, put in a cotton sack, and she did that in the fall to get money for Christmas, But I can never remember having a bad Christmas either. I always got pretty much what I wanted, and which was usually cow pistols and cowboy outfits and all that. But had a good life, really good life.
Now, were you born in a hospital or were you born in a house? How did that work?
No, the house where I was born was about 3 houses away from where we grew up, where I grew up. It was a pretty good sized house, as I remember, but we moved from there and went to Huntsville. I don't remember much about Huntsville. I was too small. I didn't. I remember my dad worked for the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville. That's probably during the war, World War II, and he didn't get drafted because he did have. I guess the kids kept him out of the war, but he worked in a war-related business. You know, it's Redstone Arsenal. They built ammunition and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, it I had a pretty good life.
Yeah.
It,
So you survived without cell phones and Google and the computers and all that stuff, huh?
oh yeah, yeah, TVs and all that. I can remember being in a third or fourth grade and the teacher talking about television, and it was impossible, you know. Which I never paid much attention to it because nothing like that was ever going to happen, you know. And here I am at 80 years old, and I'm talking to
You're
whatever.
talking to
You know.
anybody that's listening.
Yeah, right. It
It's pretty amazing, though, isn't it?
it is. It's I can remember. Like I say, I grew up. I think I was in the fourth grade. And my uncle heard about all this work up around Chicago, and he went up there and got a job, and he came back driving a car, which was pretty hard to do around Huntland, because there was very little work around there and all that. And my mother saw that car and heard about the North and all that and the jobs up there. And she jumped on my dad to go up there. And my daddy said, "You're crazy, woman." I said, "I'm not going nowhere." I said, "Right here and work for Ray Johnson till I die, you know." She said, "Well, adios."
Hmm.
She took me to my sister's house, and my brother-in-law. They lived down in Flintville, Tennessee, and for the summer. And my sister, brother-in-law took me in, and she went north. And then I she came back and got me, and my sister Yvonne had married my brother-in-law Pete, and he was in the Navy. And then when he got out, they came there too. And I can I went through. I started the fifth grade up north. Here's I don't know how many people's heard of Lou Boudreau,
Hmm.
but he was a famous baseball player. But his daughter was my sweetheart, and she's married now. Well, she's not alive, I don't guess.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I
But
think we tried to look her up.
She married Denny McLain.
Hmm.
If you're any kind of baseball fan, you've heard of Denny McLain. He's a first-class pitcher. But his wife was my girlfriend when I was growing up. That's my one claim to fame. But I don't know. I can remember sitting at Lou Boudreau's house eating cookies. Uh, he had a son, Lou Jr., that younger than I was. And Lou Jr. always liked me. And anyway, that's my one claim to fame.
So
But
you went up north.
I went up north, went through the fifth grade, come back south, went through the sixth grade, went back north, went through the seventh, eighth, and part of my freshman year. And each summer I would come back south to visit folks down south. And I went through. I finished my freshman year at Flintville, sophomore and junior. And when I got, I was 17 years old, I guess, and I was so sick of school. I was not a prize student. I didn't like school, and but I did enough to get by. And I flunked the second year of algebra, and I said, "This is it." I was going to have to take an extra class to make up for that algebra. I said, "This is it." I could talk my mother into just about anything, so I talked her into signing up for me to go in the Air Force at 17. And I did that. I can remember I enlisted in Chattanooga. I remember riding a bus out of Chattanooga to go to Atlanta, to the induction center down there. And my sister and brother-in-law followed on the bus all the way to East Ridge where they lived. And we passed by the road to their house, and I looked back and saw them, and I thought, man, I should stop this bus and get off of here. And I didn't, because in my feeble mind, I was grown. I was 17 years old, big enough to do what I wanted to, and I can tell you what, about a week later, I was sitting on a foot locker at San Antonio, Texas, Lackland Air Force Base, and I said, my God, why didn't I get off that bus? Every time I turned around, I was getting chewed out for something. Of course, TIs there was chewing out everybody, first week, It was getting you inducted. I said, one more sucker yells at me, I'm gonna walk out that door, but I didn't. I made it through the basic training, and looking back, I did pretty good in basic training. I got one gig. A gig was, what do you call it? There's a mark against you, in other words. And I got one gig in basic training, and that was for leaving an envelope on a writing desk. And the training instructor comes there. It had my address on it, my name and everything else. He gave me a gig for that, and for leaving that envelope on the table. But I did pretty good. I went through the Air Force, and I don't know. I've had. You gonna ask some questions? What
Yeah,
questions?
well, it's curious. So a lot of people don't know where Huntland, Tennessee is, but we've been several times, and you haven't seen a small town until you see somewhere like Huntland, Tennessee, which is literally, I don't even think there is a red light in that town, but it's
Not
fascinating.
that I remember. The only good part about Huntland, Tennessee, most people have heard of Johnny Majors.
Yeah.
You know who Johnny Majors was?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's an All-American football player. His daddy was the coach.
Mm.
For that 4 years, my first through the fourth grade, that high school team lost one game. Mm. And the whole town cried when they lost that one game.
Wow.
That's Johnny Majors. He's a fantastic football player. He was a good guy. Him and my sister went to school together, and they were good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And
you've been all over the place. You've lived in Texas. You've lived in Chicago. That's where I was born. You've lived in Tennessee. You've been all over.
Yeah.
You were stationed where? In the Air Force?
Turner. Well, I went through basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, and from there I went to Fort Lee, Virginia Army Base for 2 months of training, and then I got shipped to Turner Air Force Base in Albany, Georgia, and I spent 2.5 years there, maybe 3 years, I'm not sure, and from Turner I went to Saglock, Labrador. On the radar site. We were 390 miles north of Goose Bay. Mm-hmm. And other words, no civilization whatsoever, no trees, no nothing, just rocks and ice.
Mm.
It got colder than hell there. It,
You were there for a year, weren't you?
yeah,
A
for
year.
one solid year.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was, you know, it was rough duty, but
He
I
used to
say,
tell stories about how you would hitchhike all over the place.
oh yeah, we. I guess I first hitchhiked when I was probably in the third or fourth grade. I don't know. Me and my first cousin Charles, we were best buddies. You know, and we walked. We wanted to go visit somebody, go down to my Aunt Annie's house, which Aunt Annie was a treat because she always had something good to eat, always, and she spoiled us boys too. And it was me and Charles would go everywhere, usually by foot.
It was a lot simpler time back then, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, a lot simpler.
And
Of
you used
course,
to, like
there's
you
no
said,
TV.
and you used to pick cotton. You used to pick cotton in the fields every day.
Yeah, chop cotton, and then when it got cold, the cotton would bloom out, and then it would be a field full of cotton, and you had to drag a sack. God, I hated that. I thought, of course, my brother-in-law Gilbert, which I lived mostly with them, he was a pretty successful farmer. His his whole family was a success, you know, from his father and all. But I hated that cotton. I hated farming because farming was work, you know.
It's a lot of work.
And yeah, I didn't. I remember tobacco. When you couldn't do anything else in the field, you could always work in the tobacco. And I hated that. I said, God, I'll never smoke. I could understand why people smoke. It's, you know, but it was a profit crop, you know. You'd make money at it.
Right.
And it's,
You being born in '43, you've seen quite a bit of things in your life. Tell us about you have the story about when Kennedy was assassinated. You remember that day?
yeah, I remember that, but I don't remember the story you're talking about.
Just how you felt whenever that happened. You know, that was like your September 11th
I was,
moment.
what year was that? That was in
50.
Labrador, I
He was
think.
in Labrador.
Scared the hell out of me. I remember I was at lower camp. We had two camps. We had lower camp where the runway was, and the maintenance people that took all the vehicles and everything else. They were civilians mostly, and we had probably 120 military there. And I got a call. I was at lower camp. I got a call from upper camp, and I don't remember who called. Might have been the colonel. Might have been another airman. I don't remember who it was, but they said the president's been shot. Scared the heck out of me, you know, because we were going through things with Russia then and all that, and I was 20 years old, I think, and I figured, well, they're going to send missiles to Russia because I figured that's who was behind it and all that, but evidently it wasn't. It was just a wacko dude in Dallas, Texas.
Right.
And I don't know. A scary time, though.
I bet.
Who could imagine the president of the United States being shot?
Right.
You know,
Sure. It's wild.
because it's insane. You know.
It is. So, looking back, Dad, like we're sitting here on this table with all this electronics and technology, and we're talking. Did you ever think like you know, you were alive well before you were alive, before common air conditioning in the homes and things like that, you know? I mean,
Oh yeah.
how things have changed so much in your life. And, you know, I feel like my generation was the last one to go through, you know, we were kind of pre-internet, you know, at my age. And so my children, they have no idea what it's like to grow up without modern air conditioning and television and Google and things like that. But there was a whole entire world before all of this. And,
Oh yeah. I can remember. I remember making pallets out in the backyard, you know, to be cool. Go out there and the breeze would come through, you know. And go to sleep. And air conditioning was. I remember when we moved to Illinois. You remember the Brant Theater? There's the Harvey Theater and the Brant Theater. There's two theaters in town, Harvey, Illinois. I can remember my sister making me wear short pants, and which I hated. You know, I don't know how old I was, fourth grade or something like that. And then she'd take me to the theater, and I'd sit there and freeze to death in that air conditioning and
your
watch the
body was
movie.
not
And
even
I'm
used
sitting
to it.
there shaking, you know, and saying,
Yes.
hell, it enjoy the movie, but 'cause there's no television, you know. And I remember my sister listening to radio and listening to what's his name, Hank Williams.
Oh, Hank Williams.
Hank Williams, yeah.
Right.
That's you know, he was popular, you know. Listen to Grand Ole Opry and all that.
You were a big Elvis fan,
Oh yeah,
and you were alive when Elvis died.
yeah, yeah. I remember I was working in Harvey, Illinois, and I came over there. This guy, he had a Mexican mother, I think, or something, and I can't remember his name, but he was a good friend. But he told me when I walked into the tavern, we always went to the tavern after work, and he said, "Man, Elvis is dead." I said, "Oh, you're crazy." Yeah, Elvis died. And I sat there and drank a few beers, and I went home. I lived in Chicago Heights, Illinois at that time. And went out on my backyard. I had a bench out there that I had built, I think. And I sat there and cried. I thought about, you know, because Elvis was a big part of my life, you know. I remember my sister and her girlfriend going to Chicago on IC, Illinois Central, to see Elvis. And that was a big deal. And later on, I went to Graceland.
That's right. We went to Graceland. That
Yeah.
was amazing. I still remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember, or I don't know if you remember that we went in the car museum, and I was just a kid, and they had the Elvis's cars on the turntables. I don't know if you remember this, but
I remember.
I took my hand and I touched one of the car fenders as it was rolling by, and all of a sudden these alarms started going off, and these guys started coming out everywhere, and I'd already snatched my hand back. But I thought that y'all were going to beat me to death, but nobody saw me. Nobody saw me, and the security guards just after the alarms went off, and I was just standing there like, oh my God, I'm gonna get arrested for touching Elvis's car fender. You know?
Yeah.
I will never forget that. That was pretty scary, but
Yeah. Elvis was he was amazing. He took the world by storm, you know.
Right.
I can remember watching that GI Blues. Elvis was a cool dude. He really was. I tried my damnedest to be like Elvis.
right.
It
Do you remember the first song that you ever taught me to sing? It wasn't Elvis, but I don't know if you remember.
no, I don't.
One of the earliest memories, the first song.
Buddy Holly probably.
No, it was Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash.
Oh, yeah,
You used to
yeah,
sing that
okay.
to me all the time.
Yeah, well, Johnny Cash was a different story.
Oh,
man.
yeah. Yeah.
He I don't know, somebody one time had told me I looked like Johnny Cash, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried my damnedest to sound like Johnny Cash. And it so that was my thing. And I loved Johnny Cash's songs told a story to me, you know. And
Absolutely.
it I used to love to sing those songs.
Mm.
Uh,
He was a great American icon.
yeah, he was a human being, and he had his problems and everything else, you know. But it was life,
Hmm.
you know.
Yep.
It was
And you were also in jail with Martin Luther King,
oh,
correct?
good
You weren't
grief,
in the same cell, but you were there with him, right?
yeah. I was uh, Martin Luther King had been hitting the state of Georgia, you know, and they were demonstrating and everything else, and the Air Force Base, Turner Field, had put the town off limits, and because there wasn't nothing but trouble down there, you know, with these causing demonstrations and everything else. There's no place for us Air Force people to leave. But in my simple mind, I was an airman second class, Roy B. Hambrick, and you don't tell me I can't go to town when I want to, because I drink. You
Hmm.
know, I love beer, and I love being in the honky tonks, you know, and all this. And so I went to town, and I can remember the night. A couple of my buddies had bought a little drive-in restaurant or rented a place, you know, and me and the guy from North Dakota, uh, can't think of his name right now, but he had separated from his wife, and his wife went back to North Dakota, and he'd been living in the barracks, and he was about 28 years old, and I was 20 years old, and we were down there where we wasn't supposed to be, and we pulled out of the. It'd been raining, and we pulled out of the drive-in restaurant, and the car fishtail, and the old boys pulled over. You know, the cops come and they pulled him over. He told me, he said, sit in the car. He said, stay in the car, I'll take care of this. And I said, what the? He tell me what to do. You can't. He got out talking to the cops, and I said, what the? Taking so long? So naturally, I got out of the car. I'm walking up to the cops, and I said, hey, look, what's. And I said, I'm Roy B. Hambrick. And the car pulled a pad out of his pocket and said, hey, spell that last name. I said, why? What? He handcuffed me and took me to jail. And that was immediately trouble because I was where I wasn't supposed to be. I was going to jail. And they put me in the jail, and I was in there for about 45 minutes or an hour. But they had arrested Martin Luther King, and they had one of the Freedom Marchers in the same cell. I was in the same cell with him. They had the jail segregated, you know. And this this white guy was from New York City. They'd come down there freedom marching.
Hmm.
He kept yelling back and forth, "Hey, Martin, they treating you hard, Martin. They beating the hell out of you, Martin." Martin Luther King yelled back, "No, man, I'm all right. Play it
Wow.
cool, you know." But that's
Hmm.
as close as I got to that.
Right. I'm telling you, you've been around. You've seen a lot of things, man. There's all kinds of stories that we could talk about. Some of them probably not appropriate for here, but
Without a
you've
doubt.
lived a wild life, man. A wild
I
life.
don't know. I've lived probably a dangerous life. I had moved to Turner Field, and I didn't have a car, and I decided to go back to Chicago and get that '54 Ford convertible. Or I'd went back hoping my dad would buy me a car, But he didn't want to buy me a car. He wanted to buy a car for himself, and he gave me the Ford. So I drove it back to Georgia, and that thing used about a quart of oil every 2 miles. uh, but I went home on leave one time and went back to Huntland. I picked up my first cousin and his girlfriend, and we went over and picked up. He knew another girl and got one for me, and my Uncle Marvin had lived owned a beer joint in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and we decided to go up there to see him. Now, I can remember from that day, I can remember going to it was a tire store. It was where the Greyhound bus had come through town, would stop, and my first cousin, Paul, was sitting out there on a bench. And I can remember picking him up, and the rest of it I cannot remember, not anything. My next memory starts about 3 months later.
Ah, yes, the wreck.
I woke up. I didn't know where I was at. And my sister, who lived in New York City, was sitting beside the bed there. I said, "Jean, where am I at?" As you're in the hospital in Nashville.
It was Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. So what am I doing here? And she said, "You had a car wreck." And I used to bring people home with me from the Air Force, you know. I said, "Was anybody else with me?" "Yeah," I said, "2 people got killed. They were soldiers from the Air Force base, you know." And for 2 days there, I went through that, and I didn't know.
Right, you were in a coma.
Well,
I
wasn't in a coma.
Right.
My brain was.
It was scrambled.
Scrambled, right? More or less. I was walking, and they told me stories, Lord, that I could not believe. They said I wouldn't keep my clothes on, run down the hall naked, and I don't remember any of that. It was all
right.
But about 2 days later, they told me who had actually got killed, and I didn't want to believe it. You know, Paul was a special person. He was.
It was your cousin Paul.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And bad wreck. And
yeah.
And you survived.
Yeah, it was. I survived it, but it's one of the things that made me who I am today. Probably I was young and changed me in a lot of ways. Probably.
Yeah. And we went 2 years ago into the gravesite. You remember that?
Yeah.
Going to the graves?
Yeah.
Up in Tullahoma, Tennessee. If you know anything about it, Huntland, Tennessee, Tullahoma, it's just very, very small cornfields and farmers. And it's just a wild place. It's actually a wonderful place to go to see. Of course, the house that Dad was born in is not there anymore. But it's still just a small town as it ever was. What was that place? That the main place was that the sawmill, right there in town? That's all. That's what they did, logging and sawmilling.
Well, the sawmill, it's gone. You know, I mean, that's probably thing. They've got a stave mill there now.
That's what it is.
In another section of town that they build barrels for Jack Daniel's whiskey and things like that.
Okay.
And Michael Alloway was a lumber expert. He'd go through there and look at the different staves, and he said, "That's a bourbon stave." Meaning they'd take that stave and they'd build a bourbon barrel out of it, and they'd put Jack Daniels in it and let it age. And
So you went up north and became a welder. Worked for Whiting Corporation.
Yeah.
And we lived in a little suburb called Harvey on the south side, right?
Yeah.
And I remember moving down here when I was about 5 years old. And you went back up to Harvey fairly recently to visit one of your friends, right?
Yeah.
Eddie Perry. And you told us a story about how you and Mom drove through the south side of Harvey, where we used to live, and said that it was boarded up, completely empty. All the houses had been just demolished. And then when you got back to the hotel, that and you had befriended one of the workers there, and she couldn't believe that you guys drove through Harvey. You remember that? Her telling you that?
Yeah,
Said it was a demilitarized zone, right?
yeah. It was you was putting your life in. The civil rights are going on, and all that thing. Is a lot of demonstrating, and it was a war, more or less. And Harvey was off limits. You couldn't. You know,
I remember Harvey was a very Polish. It was like a Polish suburb.
yeah,
A lot of Polish people, a lot of Polish supermarkets. We talk about these kinds of things around in circles and stuff, and how the Polish language was used a lot,
Yeah.
which so a lot different than people imagine down here, being in these small
fact,
towns.
My oldest daughter,
Mm-hmm.
who is actually my stepdaughter,
Right.
but I've had her since
You've
she
raised her
was 2
since she
years
was
old, and Jennifer's father was Polish.
I remember him.
He was a mailman,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a friend of mine. In fact,
Yeah.
but he got divorced from Barbara, and I ended up
Right.
marrying Barbara, and which, of course, if I hadn't done that, you wouldn't be here,
Mm-hmm.
but your sisters wouldn't be here.
But you guys decided to move south, back down into small towns, just to get away from the cities, right?
Yeah,
And so here we are.
yeah, we had. I'm trying to think. Your mother and her friend had come south.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my sister lived in Chattanooga,
Yes.
and my sister Yvonne and her husband Pete lived in Chattanooga, and we always visited them. And your mother and Verna,
That's
I
right.
think her name was Verna, had ended up in Chattanooga, and they were trying to figure out where we wanted to move to because things were getting bad in Harvey,
Yeah, they were.
and so we decided to move to Chattanooga, and they found a place in Fort Old Fort.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
before I ever saw the house, I signed the papers. We went through an attorney and all that, and I signed the papers on the house. We bought the house before I ever laid eyes on it.
It was right outside of the battlefield, right? Chickamauga battlefield.
Yeah. We, my friend, my memory's going, Alvin Guest,
Mm-hmm.
we'd rented a U-Haul, and him and his girlfriend drove us down here. We followed behind him in that Pontiac,
It was,
Pontiac
it was a station
wagon.
wagon. I remember that. I remember the trip down. I do.
Yeah, we used to put the three of you and your two sisters in the back, and you'd sleep. You
Yeah,
know?
there weren't any car seats or anything like that. I mean, we weren't even seat belted. It was just in the back seat.
Well, we'd put the back seat down, you'd have the whole back.
Yeah, the whole back with
where you could
with
lay
a
down
cover.
and sleep and all that.
Uh-huh.
But we'd come down here, and I saw the house. And it was good for me because I'm kind of a history, Civil War,
Right.
and behind the house was the battlefield.
Literally behind the house was the battlefield, an entrance to the
Yeah, you
battlefield.
could walk down there and you'd be in a battlefield with, you could find, I found a couple of mini balls and,
Mm-hmm. I remember you still have them. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I traveled that whole thing. I wasn't working because I got, one reason we moved from Illinois because I come up with my neck started bothering me, and my doctor put me in a hospital there in Harvey and checked me out. And he come back and I said, "What's going on, man?" He said, "Well, we figured out what's the matter with you." I said, "What?" He said, "Torticollis." I said, torticollis? I said, I never had nothing to do with no turtles. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Anyway, he said, torticollis is a muscle spasm on the neck, and there's an expert doctor up at the Mayo Clinic. We're sending you there. So I went up there for all kinds of tests. Rochester, Minnesota. Rode a Greyhound bus up there, and it spent about 3 or 4 days there, and they ran me at a Mayo Clinic. It's like I don't know, it's nothing I've ever went through, but it's like an assembly line. I had worked at Ford Motor Company on an assembly line for about 3 days, and they send you right down through it and check you out 100%. But and they found out. The doctor told me, said, "You're not going to work anymore." I
Right.
said, "What?
So,
I got 3 kids. I got to work."
mm-hmm.
He said, "No." He said, "You go on Social Security, you know."
Mm-hmm.
I found out right quick you can't live off Social Security.
No, not even back then, huh?
No,
No.
no. It was impossible.
And it was a neck torticollis where it would make your neck kind of twist and very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I remember that.
Yeah.
Kind of the muscle spasms that make your shoulders go up and your neck turn.
Yeah, it deforms you more or less.
Right, right.
It
very rare too. Even to this day, I think it's fairly rare.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyway, I survived it, and I don't know. It of course I worked under the table. I maybe shouldn't be saying that, but
It's
I
okay.
did.
Our tax money's going over Ukraine. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, right. It but in fact, we've had a fairly good life.
We have. You've done. We when I was growing up, I started driving when I was 13 years old. You used to let me drive on the paper routes on the weekends.
Yeah, that's another thing. Paper drought.
Mm-hmm.
That your mother worked at the Golden Gallon, and
Mm-hmm.
the guys would deliver Chattanooga free times and all that in there, and I got to know them. And she come home one time. You want a job? I said, what? Delivering papers. I said, yeah, that seemed like a pretty good deal, you know. So I drive about 100, 110 miles.
It's about 99 miles a night is about what it was. Yeah,
Yeah,
about 100 miles.
Something like that. All through Ringo
Mhm.
and
All
over in
through.
Catoosa County.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, that was every night.
Mhm.
Still today, sometimes I think about it. I walk into one of the Golden Gallons and I say, whew, at least I don't have to run the paper
I know.
out tonight, you know.
I think about it all the time. She used to take me to work when I was just a kid, and they used to have the magazine sections in the back of the store, and I would just stay back there and I'd read magazines and while she worked. So yeah,
Yeah.
very
Well,
interesting.
Just fold those papers,
Mm-hmm.
toss them out. It was survival.
Mhm.
You know, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't all that hard. You just
Sure.
had to drive. You know,
And I think
you learn how to drive anyway.
there's 2 pivotal moments that we'll discuss too. Number one was what we've been leaving out this whole time. A lot of this you spent drinking, right?
Yeah,
Quite the drinker.
yeah. I can't remember my first drink. My daddy used to make homebrew, which is a homemade beer more or less. My daddy wasn't a big drinker. He didn't, but I'd found some homebrew in a syrup bucket, which probably a quart or whatever. But I drank some of that and I loved it. From that moment on, every time I got a chance, I had a beer in my hand, you know, which wasn't that often,
Right.
as far as it goes. And so,
But it took a hold of you, didn't it?
yeah, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It
I would definitely phrase you as a functioning alcoholic, though. I mean, you never stopped working, you never stopped providing, but I remember being a kid and having to go get those glass bottles of beer, and I dropped one time. I thought I was going to get. I was thought you were going to beat me to death, but you didn't. You didn't even touch me.
And well,
You
but I
remember
can
that?
remember after I got to Torticollis, I can remember Laura was a baby, and Jenny pulling a red wagon with you and Laura sitting in the
Yeah.
back of it, and we'd walk down to the
Down to
grocery
the
store.
yeah. I remember that. I remember that.
And I get about 4 quarts a day.
Yeah.
It's, that was my existence. You know, of course,
Mhm.
I did take care of you guys while your
You
mother
did.
worked.
And you got sober. You got sober.
Yeah, that was later.
It was, but it was a very pivotal moment of your life because we could probably sit here for hours and talk about the
Well,
stories.
I
But you got
remember your
sober.
mother griping and groaning and, "Hey, you stupid drunk." And I'm sitting in the backyard. I can remember that day because I was about naked. All I had on was a pair of shorts, and that's the way I was running around the house, you know. So I wasn't working, but I was drinking, and I was sitting out in the backyard. It was a hot day. I was sitting there with a quart of Old English 800, 40 ouncer, and she's yelling out the back door, "Yeah, you're nothing but a drunk." I'm thinking, I'm going to shut this broad up. I've been reading a book. I'm a big reader. I read
Yes.
a lot.
Yes.
And I had read The Days of Wine and Roses. And that book had a big impact on my life. I'm going to go to the AA meeting down there by the Golden Gallon. That was a sign over there behind a fence of an AA meeting, you know. And I had no intention of trying to quit drinking or anything else, and but I didn't want to quit drinking, and I didn't think that I could, and but I shut Barbara up. I'm going to the AA meeting, and I went to my first AA meeting, and I'm sitting there, you know, and all these people on hold out chairs and all this, and they're talking, and each person in there would say something, you know, and everybody'd have a chance to talk or say something about how their life had changed since they quit drinking and everything. It hit me hard. And I got up and, well, when I first went there, I couldn't open the door. And so I said, hell, I don't want to be here anyway. And I made it back to the corner of the building. Some guy stuck his head out the door and said, "Hey, get your butt back here." And so I went back, and that's how my first AA meeting went. And tears were coming down my cheeks, and after it was over, I shook hands with everybody, and I left. And I said, I ain't going back there no more. You know, it hit me fairly hard. And the next day, about 10 or 11 o'clock, somebody's at the front door. And I went to the door, and there's 4 sober drunks out there. They'd come from the AA meeting, and they just stopped by to see how I was doing and talk about Alcoholics Anonymous and all this. And that hit me pretty hard. I thought, well, damn, these people are serious, aren't they? And about 3, I remember Gerald Stanfield tapping me on the back of the shoulder, and Gerald was the outside sponsor of the prison. And he said, I want you to go to prison with me. I didn't go to prison for what? Well, he ran the AA out at Walker Prison. I said, okay, I'll go out there with you. And I went out there for 3 months, and Gerald, I think, was getting prescription drugs or something. He was legalized drugs, but it was putting him on his butt, you know. And they stopped him from going to prison. And it ended up in my lap for what? 5
That's
years?
right. You became the prison AA sponsor, right? You would
Yeah.
go into the jails and you would talk to the inmates about joining the
Well-
program. I mean, you took it very seriously.
Well, they had a meeting down in Macon, Georgia,
Mhm.
every 3 months.
At the Hilton.
Assembly or something, you know.
Mhm.
And I started going to Macon, and I ended up being
GSR.
the institutional director of the state of Georgia,
Yep. Yep.
whichever I thought was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was, you had to go to Macon and get up on that stage in front of about 1,000 sober alcoholics and tell what went on in the meeting. I remember how nervous I used to get from that. That was scary.
Yeah, I remember you used to take me to the meetings. We would go to 3 or 4 meetings a week, and of course, at that time, I could just run around wherever. You know, if there was a ball field close by, I'd be running outside, inside out. Always tried to be quiet. We would meet up at some of the facilities at Hutchison and walk around the offices when nobody's there. Type, didn't never mess with anything, but I always seemed like I paid attention. I think a lot of that kept me out of trouble, just being there and being around people who were sober and in the programs and things like that. So
The program's a great thing. It's saved a lot of people's lives.
and then
Mine.
once you
especially.
got sober and you now you're a bail bondsman, now you own your own bail bonding company.
Yeah,
I don't know how these things happen.
I don't know how that happened. Well, for one thing, I went to work for Huckabee,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how the hell that come about either. But
Just people knowing you and liking you and offering you, and it was just different.
yeah, well, your mother was friends. Your mother worked at the Walker County Jail,
Mm-hmm.
and the person she worked with,
Right. Her
Uh,
husband.
her husband, was
I cannot remember his name.
I can't either. But he got me involved in.
Yeah, he got you involved in the bail bonding.
In the bail bonding. Yeah, he had worked for Huckabee Bonding, and the guy that worked with him was the son-in-law of Snyder, I think,
Right.
who ran the jail,
Mm-hmm.
and he got fired. Huckabee let him go, and what the heck was his name?
Can't remember.
Anyway, he came to me and said, your mother came home. You want to go work for Huckabee Bonding? I said, go talk to what's his name. And he took me down to meet Gary Huckabee downtown Chattanooga, and Gary hired me. And
You did that for a long time, and then we decided to start our own bonding company, right?
well, I did that after Gary Huckabee died.
Right. Yeah. Once Gary Huckabee died, it was pretty clear. A lot of agents wanted to go on their own. They really respected Gary Huckabee. And,
Yeah, Huckabee was a good man. He was a good man, but after he died, nobody wanted to work for him much anymore.
yeah.
Uh, I didn't particularly. I quit, and about 3 or 4 days later, I think Steve Wilson was at our house. Your mother worked for him, and we would give Christmas parties and what have you. And he was in my kitchen getting a cup of coffee. I said, I'd like to start a bonding company. He said, what? I said, I'd like to start a bonding company. He said, well, what about Huckabee? I said, well, I talked to, what's his name over there, and I said, I don't want to work for him no more. So I'll have to come see me Monday, And so I went and saw him Monday, and he said, oh, we'll give it a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But
That was how many years ago? 24 years ago.
24.
Yeah, and Steve Wilson, he'll be on the show. He'll be on the show on our candidate night. So, absolutely.
He'll be here.
Yeah, he'll be in studio. So,
Okay.
but a lot. We won't cover the bail bonding tonight. We're already at an hour. And I hit him up on the spot, but that could be a completely separate show. The bounty hunting and the bail bonding, and we've been through some stuff. So it's been a crazy couple of decades, man. But the bottom line is the changes that you've seen in your life that I couldn't even begin to understand either. You've seen so many things change in this country. And some for the better, some for the worse, right? But
It's like you know, I was born in 1943. That had to be World War II. And my uncle, Austin Roberts, had got drafted, and he went over there and fought the Japanese, in fact. He wouldn't talk much about it, but he became a local hero, because he's one of the 10 most decorated people in the state of Tennessee, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
I'm not sure. My mother used to have all his ribbons and everything else. Whatever happened to him, I don't know. But Uncle Austin, and then World War II ended, and he got drafted into Korea. And I remember him before he went to Korea. He came by the house to see my mother, and I had to be 43. Korea was what, 1950?
Somewhere
Had to
along
be
the line.
5, 6 years old. But Uncle Austin was my hero, and he was leaving. I didn't want him to see me cry, because I was a big boy, and I went and hid under the stove, behind the stove. And he wanted to say goodbye to me, and he came and drug me out behind that stove and made me cry.
Right. Right.
And he said, "It'll be okay." He nicknamed me Tojo.
Tojo.
Yeah, from World War II. He'd been fighting Tojo over there in the Japanese. And when I was born, my mother wrote him about me, and he forgot my name, and he wrote back and said, "How's little Tojo?" And that stuck, you know. There's people over in that area only knows me by Tojo.
Right.
But,
It's true. I've seen it.
It's history, you know.
Yes.
It's been an interesting 80 years.
It has.
And
You're going to be 81 this year, huh?
May the 14th.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, I hope I can make it to 100.
There you go.
My sister Jean is 93.
Yep,
I'm hoping that I'll make it.
Just got to talk to her from all the way in California, and
Yeah.
she's 93 years old. So
That's amazing right there.
it is. It is.
Today you can do that.
Just as beautiful as she ever was.
I can remember back when I was a kid, the radio was amazing to me. How my sister sat in our living room and listened to Hank Williams.
Right.
And that was amazing. And there's been a lot of different things. We've had a man walk on the moon.
That's right.
And
Wow.
and I walked through swamps. And
it's been a journey, isn't it?
It's been a journey, and as far as regrets go, I've got few. I've got a couple, without a doubt.
Sure.
But I doubt if anybody ever lives this life, especially for 80 years, and don't regret a few things.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I've had some fantastic friends, and I've met a lot of interesting people.
Yep. And Wesley Steele, you remember Wesley? He says hi. Wesley Steele's on there. Yep.
You know what?
He says you're a very good man. I don't know if I agree with that or not, but that's what he says anyway.
Wesley, I was thinking about Wesley yesterday. I think I haven't seen Wesley in a while.
I need to see. He comes up. He's at the bin store every now and then. We need to drive by and see him one day. I still see him a lot. So
Wesley is
he says you might have a story or two about his Uncle Charlie.
Charles Steele, yeah.
You want to tell one real quick?
I met him at AA.
Yeah.
He helped me a lot.
Yes.
Charlie would talk to me sometimes and tell me stories and things like that. Yeah. Charlie was a good man.
Yeah. A lot of good men went through AA. A lot of men I looked up to growing up.
Yeah.
But
Wesley's been a policeman for.
Oh yeah, great man. Great man.
Oh yeah.
Surrounded by good people in this our area.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
To have known people like Wesley Steele and Charlie Steele, and
absolutely.
It's helped me get through this life.
We've had good law enforcement. We've had good sheriff. We've had a lot of good things in our area. So a lot of blessings.
Yeah, Al Millard was a good man. He I remember sitting on my back carport with Alma Large, and I remember that, what was it, Boots, the dog coming up and
Boots, yeah.
sniffing around. I tried to run the dog off, and Alma Large said, "That dog lives here." Said, "Leave him alone," and petted the dog, you know.
Yeah.
It been fortunate a
Mm-hmm.
lot that where we live was fortunate enough to we got a pretty good house there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fancy or anything else, but
No, I often wonder what kind of person would I be if we were still living in Chicago or we hadn't moved down here. What kind of pathways in our lives would we have been? You know, it's almost impossible to understand, but I don't believe in coincidences, and maybe we were supposed to be here for a reason, you know.
possibly.
Possibly.
That too.
We'll never know, but I thank the Lord, you know, every day. So,
We're yeah, really. Just through this company, I've met a lot of interesting
Mm-hmm.
people, you know.
yeah, you sure have.
And through AA,
Mm-hmm.
met a lot. I think about Dr. Conway Hunter. When I was the outside sponsor at the prison, I called him up, and he lived on the East Coast on an island over there. I forget the name of the island, off of Savannah, somewhere over in there. But he came all the way to the prison from his home, and brought his wife, which he had a beautiful wife, and was a very nice person, and spoke at the prison for the AA meeting, and you know, things like that impressed me quite a bit. It's people that would go out of their way to help other folks, you know.
And you've spent a better part of your life doing that as well, so very respected.
Well, like somebody said one time, you helped a lot of people, but I never looked at it like that because I helped myself.
Right.
It was without the program of AA, I wouldn't be alive, for one thing, and I'm a selfish person, and I did it to help myself. I would never think about helping other people so
Right.
much as maybe something I did help somebody, but that's a benefit that I don't think about. I help myself, and getting away from alcohol and everything, getting into the program AA, Dr. Bob and Bob Wilson, I haven't been to an AA meeting in a long time.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but I haven't had to.
It's hard. It's hard to get
I mean,
to go anymore. But yeah. Well, so I can certainly say this: without you, none of what we're doing here would be possible. So I want to thank you for all the support that you're giving us, because I think we're making one heck of a difference.
Who,
And
me?
yeah. This is I couldn't do all this without you. You know, so we appreciate it. My audience thanks you. I mean, you're the reason that we're able to do what we're doing here. So you know.
Well, we started a TV show,
I remember
and
on the Judy O'Neill.
Judy O'Neill. That was fun.
It was fun. You guys did singing and all kinds of stuff.
Hello.
Stelvis and Johnny Cash,
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. I can't do it no more.
which is crazy when I think about it because I often was I never liked doing anything like that, and yet here I am running my mouth. So it's ridiculous. But anyway, I
We
just
had a lot of
appreciate
fun.
I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot. It just felt right. So
Okay.
a lot of people coming through. A lot of people. We've got Barbara, my mother, Ray, Mike Pons, Larry Houston, Brian Queen, Wesley, Jonathan Stout, Richard Schroeder. We appreciate you guys hanging out. Like
See
I
what
said,
your mother's got to say.
she was talking about the November 22nd. That's when 11/22 '63. That's when Kennedy was assassinated. So.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But guys, we appreciate you. This was really spur of the moment. It just felt right. We had to talk to his sister out in California, and we were just sitting here talking, and I said, you know what, we should go live and just talk. So I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I appreciate you, old man, and
Okay.
we're gonna see you through 81, and we're just gonna continue to try to keep this nation afloat. So. What you've seen through your life and some of the stories that we could go on and on about.
We're gonna keep doing vote Republican.
Vote Republican. We're going to try to get Trump back in there and right some of this stuff it's going crazy. So
Yeah. It I don't know. My sister, my oldest sister Helen, she was a dyed in the wood Democrat.
yes,
And she you didn't mention the Republican Party to her. I don't know. Anyway, that's it.
all right. Well, listen, we appreciate it, guys and gals. Thank y'all for hanging out. We are going to do some candidate forums every other Monday, starting tomorrow evening. We're going to have Melvin Moody on here for commissioner, and I'm setting the rest of them up. Steve Wilson has agreed to come on, and we've got more coming your way, and we will still resume the live show on Wednesdays, and the candidate forums will be on Monday. So, man, thanks for everybody hanging out. I appreciate it.